thought it'd be a really good idea if we introduced ourselves to you so that you know a little bit about us, because we thought it's important for you to know actually who's cheering you on. So I just love your South African accent. So obviously you've been raised in South Africa.
Yes.
So can you tell us a bit about what that was like for you? What was your childhood like for you?
Well, I was born in East London in South Africa, which is down in the southeastern part of it. And I was born into a Christian family. I'm actually so grateful for the parents that I have. Not only have they loved me and nurtured me, they've loved and nurtured my children. And the one thing that I cherish so much now that we live so far apart, we don't see them because they're still in South Africa, are their prayers. I know that they pray for me and my family every single day. And that's a real blessing to me because I know their prayers are powerful.
Yeah.
So yeah. I had a very happy childhood. I have 2 sisters. I'm the eldest. I am married to Anton, and we have 3 children. And we moved to Australia in 2002. And initially we moved to Melbourne, which is actually where I became involved in children's ministry and joined a team there at a church. That was fantastic to be part of a group of people who were just going after God's heart for children and activating them in their faith and leading them into encounters with Jesus so that they could actually establish their own personal relationship with him.
So Bev, why did that ministry create such a passion in you for children to understand who they are in the supernatural?
I think it was probably because I saw children enjoying Jesus' presence so much, and I saw how he spoke to them. I saw how we as teachers can teach them things that are in the Bible or that we think they should learn, but it's only Jesus who can interpret those lessons and teach them to the children in a way that they can understand and relate to. And he was just so wonderful at doing that. Yeah.
And so how old were your children? Were you able to teach these things to your children when they were young?
You know, that's the one thing I do wish I knew. The things that I know now, that I could have taught those things to my children, because I didn't. I did the best I could, but I do wish that I'd known those things that I could have led my children when they were little into Jesus' presence and just made them more spiritually aware and aware of the fact that he was talking to them and that he wanted to have a personal relationship with them, and just learning the tools and the language around doing that with young children.
Yeah, I have to agree. As a mother and a grandmother, I think that's my biggest disappointment. But I think that's one of the reasons why you and I are so passionate about helping young parents now, so that they can instill into their children from day one that intimacy that they can have. Like, I know that you and I both taught our children that they could have a personal relationship with Jesus, and that Jesus loved them, and that they love him, and that he's their best friend. All those things which are very good and powerful, and they made a difference in our children's lives.
Yes, they did.
However, I think we're both aware that if we had been able to really tap them into hearing God's voice for themselves and being able to be aware of that intimate relationship way beyond a friendship that he wants to have with them and can have with them, and how they can actually really walk in the supernatural so naturally. I do. I think it's one of the things that make both you and I so hungry to be sharing with parents.
That's right.
So Bev, you have 3 children.
Yes.
And a wonderful husband, Anton.
Yeah.
So for yourself as a mother and a wife, what do you think is your priority in life as far as your connection with Jesus, so that you can be that instrument of encouragement to your children now that they're adults, and still to your husband?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I find that to be able to teach my children intimacy with the Father, I have to be intimate with Him. And so every day, my priority is to spend time with Him. And that just, when we spend time with Him, we soak in all His wisdom, all His love, all His joy. And that helps us to be wives and to be mothers that we are created to be.
Yeah. And yet we both know that when you're a mother of little ones, it's a lot harder to find the time and the space to do that. Do you have any secrets that you could, or some sort of encouragement you can give those that are in that really busy time of life where the children, you know, they probably don't, Mummy is on call 24/7 and Daddy as well. Like it's a big demand on daddies as well. And I love today how the young fathers are so much more a part of the upbringing of the children, which is just wonderful. But it is a busy time. I just spent the weekend with my youngest son and his wife and their little 1-year-old and 4-year-old, and it just reminds me of how busy it is. So do you have any advice for young parents, mothers and fathers, how to actually be in that intimate place with Jesus themselves?
Well, I think it's so important to know that, or to remember that Jesus is with us 24/7 all the time, anywhere we go. And that we can grab moments. When we're washing the dishes, in all our busyness, when we're in the shower, we don't necessarily need to have a really quiet, still place where we can listen to the Father's voice and spend time with Him. He's pretty good at communicating with us wherever we are and in all the busyness. And I also think it's so good if we can model spending time with Jesus in front of our children. So not necessarily, you know, waiting for them to not be there, but to do it when they're running around, when they're playing. They can see us reading the Bible, or they can hear music we play as we worship, or just having it play in the background, or the books that we read to them, you know, engaging them in the stories. Just using everyday moments all the time to make them aware of the fact that Jesus is there.
Yeah. And I think too, we've thought in the past that to spend time with Jesus we have to be aside and lock ourselves in a room. And there is a part of that, definitely, that is a part. But I think particularly in the busy time of life when children are very little, because we know that that's going to be hard to find that time, but include Him in our whole life, because that's what we're wanting to teach the children, that it's natural to be supernatural.
That's right.
And actually involving Jesus in all your day is supernatural. But we tend to think of it just being natural because we're looking at what's naturally in front of us. But I remember I was really encouraged when I was a young mum when I heard how Billy Graham's wife, apparently where they lived, I read it years ago, where they had a staircase. And she would have the Bible set out on the staircase because she knew as a young mum she had hardly any time to be with Jesus. And so each time she went past that staircase, she would read another verse in the Bible of wherever it was she was up to. And then she'd just think about it and talk about it as she was walking around the day and up to the next thing that she was doing. And I think that was always a real encouragement to me that, and I love also the book on that Brother Lawrence wrote about practicing the presence of God. It's only a little booklet, but just how he just brought God into everything he did, the presence of God. People actually used to come and watch that man wash up because his washing the dishes was such a spiritual act, because everything he did, he was so aware of the presence of God with him. And that's, I think, this is really what we're trying to show our children.
Yes.
So if we're only spending time with God behind closed doors, they're not seeing how we include him in every part of our life.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah,
I remember
love those two
reading
things.
a story about Charles Wesley's wife.
Oh, okay.
And he had, I can't remember how many exactly.
Susanna, her name was Susanna.
That's right.
Yes.
They had 15 children
Yes,
or something.
a lot.
Yes. And so she always used to have an apron
Yes.
around her, and she had nowhere to go.
Yes.
Nowhere quite
You could
to
imagine.
go. Yes. And she used to put her apron over her head, and that's where she used to pray and spend time with Jesus.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, really.
Beautiful.
It's possible.
It's absolutely possible.
Yeah.
But when we over-spiritualize it, when we and then we make it religious instead of an intimacy and an intimate walk with the Lord,
that's right.
then we get religious and go, it has to happen a certain way,
Yes, that's right.
instead of just making it part of our life.
That's
and
right.
that's what the children really need to learn.
Absolutely.
To just make it part of their life.
That's right.
And that they are supernatural.
Yes. So, Susanna,
Yes.
why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, yes, I am. I also was like you. I was brought up in a Christian home. I had the most amazing parents on the planet Earth. Were they perfect? Not by any stretch of the imagination, but they were wonderful.
Yeah.
I thank the Lord for them. I think just about every day of my life. I really do. Mind you, I didn't when I was a teenager. I thought they were the worst on the planet Earth. And then I'm married to Rob. I have 4 adult children.
Yeah.
I have 12 grandchildren who I adore.
What are their ages?
They range from 19 down to 1. So they're quite spread out. And then my children are spread out. There's 10 and a half years between my eldest and my youngest. And I have 3 boys, 1 girl. So I have 3 amazing daughter-in-laws, and I have 1 beautiful son-in-law. And we're a fairly close family. We're like all families. We have our ups and our downs, which is part of life. But we're a close family, and strangely enough, all our children work for Rob and I as well.
So what is that work?
That work is childcare. So we have 10 childcare centres, and we are very passionate about children and very passionate about family.
Yes.
It's something that, the Lord's really laid on our heart. So they're not Christian centres, because the Lord told us He wanted us to create centres where we have the presence of God in them.
So would you consider your shepherding of parents at your childcare centres and the families there part of your ministry?
Absolutely, yeah. I think, to be honest, Bev, our whole life is our ministry. Wherever we are, whatever we're doing is our ministry. We've made the mistake in the past of putting ministry into boxes, and to me, that's why you and I are so passionate about teaching parents about parenting children supernaturally, because we really need, as Christians, to understand we are supernatural. We are more spiritual than we are natural. And so when we, instead of putting ministry over here and family here or work here, it's all one. So definitely the families in our centres. We have over 300 staff, and some of our staff are Christians. Some of them know Jesus and some of them don't, and so they're definitely a big part of what I'm called to for ministry.
So we are going to be talking a lot about raising spiritual children.
Yes.
What would you say spiritual children are?
Well, I guess all children are spiritual, and we are all spiritual. We're just not aware of it.
Yeah.
So in terms of, I guess, what we're trying to teach here is it's just awakening them to their spirit. My parents taught me all about Jesus, taught me all about the Bible, and taught me that I could have a personal relationship with Jesus, absolutely. But I didn't understand the depth of the spirituality that was within me and how I could connect with the Lord. It's very clear in the Word that in the spiritual realm, our parents have the biggest influence on us. It's not the children's ministry people. No. It's not the pastors. No. It's the parents that have the strongest spiritual authority over those children. And so when parents pray, when parents teach, when parents encourage and nurture the children, it's so much more powerful in the spiritual realm, and so much more powerful for those children.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And parents modeling,
Yeah.
you know, spirituality and modeling a supernatural lifestyle. As you always say, they catch more than they are ever taught.
That's true.